Hello everyone, this is Ashish, and today we are going to discuss about Azure Developer CLI again. And we will in the last session we went through the basics of Azure Developer CLI. And let me share my screen. And what we did was, so in the previous session we went through AZD init. Let me first go to this cd this, or maybe let's increase the size. Yeah, so cd desktop azd test. And if we look at this, okay, let's do one thing. cd azd template. So last time when we did azd demo, we covered the azd init with the template, and this was the template that we initialized with the command like this. So let's go to cd dot and then say azd test. So test, and if we look at here, we just have one folder, app src, and we will look into this folder in a bit. But right now there is no, as you can see in the template, we had some files here that we got from files like Azure YAML, the other files like other folder things like infrastructure and other things from a template. And how we got it is like azd, if we run it here, then also it will ask us, do you want to use code in the current directory or select a template. And if we last time we selected a template to deploy a ChatGPT application on Azure. So this time we will not go through the template. Instead, we'll go through the first option, which says use code in the current directory. Now what it does is, before we run this, let me go to this and open this folder. So if you look at it, this is the folder that we are talking about, and this folder has just one folder, just one directory, which is app src. And in this app src, we have a simple .NET ASP.NET application. And if I run it, and actually, yeah, so if you run it, then we will get the application here. And if we open it, we get this application on the localhost here. So this is the local application, and it can be any application in your case. Right now we are talking about .NET, but Azure Developer CLI supports couple of languages. JavaScript is one of them, .NET is one of them, and you can check what are the different languages it is supporting. So if we go AZDCLI and we just open that, and if we go to the YAML, and there you have the list of languages it supports. So it supports .NET. Yeah, so it supports .NET, C#, F#, Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, and of course Java. So these are the languages. So if you have an application developed in any one of the language, that you can have in your current directory, and then it will generate the template for you. But we will actually do a little bit more than that. So let's go back and let's do this. So here we have this thing, and apart from this application, we don't have anything over here. So if you go back to the terminal again, and if we do the same thing here, so let me clear this, and if we do azd init, then it again asks. So this time we will select use code in the current directory. So what it will do is it will scan the code, and it has detected you have .NET application which is detected in app src folder, and it will create a infrastructure based on container apps. So this is the template, I mean this is the ready-made thing that you will get if you proceed further. So we will go through that. We will not deploy to container apps, we will not use the same file structure, but I will go through customizing it in a way that you understand how what is the different process you will go through if you are working with the Azure Developer template, I mean Azure Developer CLI template. So first let's do this, and as Azure Developer CLI works with the environment, we will name it environment AZD test. You can have any name for this environment, it is very much local to your computer, and as we discussed in the previous session, it creates an environment variable with this environment name, which will be used for generating the variables and the parameters and other things for infrastructure as well. So we'll go through that, and then you can see it has generated a couple of files and folders for us. It has created next steps, it has created a YAML file for us, and it has created an infrastructure folder which contains all the bicep file for this application. And if we go to the VS Code now, you can see that apart from our app src folder, we have a infra folder, infra directory, in which we have a couple of bicep files, and then we have a YAML file which is defining the service that will be deployed, and in this we will do some modification. So right now it is it is configured to deploy on container apps. However, because it's a simple web application, we will not go to the container apps. We can do that, but for making it bit simple, we will use a simple resource like Azure Web App, and we will go through it, how to configure it, and then in this process you will get to know what are the different things you can change, how to change, and then possibly next time you can even use container apps or other supported host environment. So for example, again, just like language, so you have .NET language. Similarly, we discussed there are different languages supported by Azure Developer CLI. In the same way, you have different let me close this one, and let me cancel this. Yeah, so, and let me go back to the Azure Developer CLI documentation to show you the host thing. So you have host, and in the host you have these many hosts that you can have. So you can have app service, you can have container app, you can have function app, you can have a static web app, you can have AKS. Now AKS has some if and buts, but since right now it has created a container app infrastructure by default, we will change it to app service. We will just customize our Azure Developer CLI template to host our application on an app service resource in Azure. So let's go back and let's start changing it. So when you start changing it, there are a few things that you will change in terms of infrastructure. One thing is that YAML file. So let's close this one, and another thing is things here in infra. So in this infrastructure, you have like a main bicep file that creates a couple of resources. Yeah, as you can see, it creates app service based on a module that is being deployed here, and we don't need all these. So what we will do is we will simply delete these resources, and we will just keep certain things here. And what we will keep here is, so maybe resource we will keep, the rest of the things we will remove. So we don't need any of the resources that is being created by this template. We are going to redefine the infrastructure for us, because right now it was configured to deploy a container apps. We are changing it to a resource of our choice, which is web app, Azure Web App. Similarly, this is the journey you will go through if you are developing template for your apps, because when you deploy your apps, you will have your own requirement in terms of infrastructure. So it will never be possible that when you initialize a template, you will get the infrastructure in the same way. But it is very, very important to understand the very basic things about infrastructure, how Azure Developer CLI use that infrastructure to deploy your resources. And that's what we are going to, talk about it. Now, so one thing we will do is we will continue to use the same resource group. So here we are creating a resource group, and then now we are going to create resources, which is app, Azure Web App. Now for Azure Web App, what we will do is we will first, let me go to the modules, and in the modules you have app, and in this app you have something that we want, and we want this. So what we want is, this is something we need to have in the main thing. And what we will do is we'll create a new variable, app tags is equals to this. So we are creating a new tag variable which is called app tags, and we are calling it, we are creating it with the union of existing tags variable. So this will be included in it, plus we are also adding another key value pair, that is AZD service name app source. Now what it is, so this tag, let's just keep it here, we will come back to here. So tag that will be attached to the host resource, this is what it is meant for. So what happens is that when you create your let's delete this output as well. So what happens is that when you deploy your resources, Azure Developer CLI understand this YAML file. Now if you see this YAML file, there is a service named app service, app SRC. Now this is the service name that you can have anything. So you can have like sample app or something like that. Here we are just using the same naming convention that we got from the init command. So app SRC is the name of the service. This is the name of the service in terms of Azure Developer CLI that will be deployed on the infrastructure created by Azure. So this mapping is what done by this tag. So when you create a resource, so when you create a resource, you need to tag. Of course you can, here we are using this tag for tagging all the normal resources like resource group and other things, but the service that is going to host that project that you have defined here, this service where this particular application will be hosted in a web app. Now that web app has to have the tag with this naming convention, and this is the naming convention that you have. So AZD service name, so this is the exact key name, should be equals to the service name in the azure.yaml file. So in the azure.yaml file, right now we are using appsrc, which is same as name of the folder which contains our application source code, but it can be different. It does not need to be the same name of the folder, or the directory. It can be anything like, my app or sample app or whatever. The only thing that you need to make sure that this value and the value here, this thing should match each other, so that Azure YAML knows this is the name of the service that I'm going to deploy, and this is the name of the resource, or the attached resource where it has to be deployed. So this is the mapping that you need to make sure. Now next things are fine. The only thing we want to change is that now we don't want to deploy to container app, we want to deploy to app service. And as you can see, the help is telling you that you can have app service, container app, function app, whatever. Now here I'm going to change it app service. So now it will be deployed on app service, but we don't have app service in infrastructure defined, because the infrastructure that we have is kind of configured for for container apps. So what we will do is we will delete all these modules that we don't need anymore, because these are modules that are more appropriate for container registry. Now if you want to use the same template, you can use it, but still you will need to modify certain things. So for example, if you are going to use the same container apps approach, then you may need to reuse the container registry. You don't want to create a registry as and when there is a new app. So you can see there is a registry also being created by this deployment. So there are two types of scenario where you will change things in infrastructure folder. One, that you have the template but you want to customize that template. Two, you totally want to get rid of that template. You want to start from the scratch. You want to create your own infrastructure. And that's the reason what we are going to do is we are going to delete all these things from here, and we are going to redefine this for us. So we will keep the infrastructure folder, but we will delete app folder. We will delete modules folder or directory, and we will remove the shared directory. Now you can keep the same directory structure as well, but for me, I'm just getting rid of everything. And if we go to the infra folder, we have this main. We have a parameter file, and in the parameter file also we have certain things which we don't need anymore. So we don't need this parameter, we don't need this parameter, we don't need this principal. So first let's go ahead and remove these things from here. So we don't need them, and you can see there is a line which says that it is declared but not being used because it was used in previous infrastructure definitions. So we will get rid of them. We will need environment name because that is the thing that we will be using in all the resource creation. We will need location because yes, this is the the location thing that will be used for deploying the resources. But apart from that, all other parameters we don't want to use. So what we'll do is just get rid of these. Oops. What happened? Yeah. So this guy, just making sure that nesting is good. This guy, even this one, we don't need it. So we have removed all unnecessary parameters as well. We will need environment name, we will need location, and both of these things are coming from the environment variable, and we will talk about that in a bit. You have this file here, you have an environment file, and you can see there is a environment variable already created because it asked us to provide the environment name, and if you remember, this is where we provided that. See, so here it asked us what would be the environment name, and somewhere I provided this here. So this is how it populated this value in that file, and soon it will add more values as we progress. But let's come back to the Visual Studio. Alright, so if we come back here, now we need to create infrastructure, and for that what I will do is I'll create a module folder, and in this module folder I'll create app dot, or maybe app service dot bicep. So we will create a bicep file for creating app service. Now here what we will do is we will create a app service resource. Service. Let's do this. And here what I will do is pick this one. Now we don't have app, then so let's do the parameter location, parameter app tags, similarly parameter app name, and the name should be name. Now we need a app service plan, so for that, before we create a app, we need to do app plan, and in that one do is just check if we are using the latest API, and here we'll name it. So here what I'll do is yep, this makes sense. And right now let's do the things. Okay, here remove this key from here. Okay, so app service plan is fine. Now let's remove the app settings. We don't need all of it, so remove it. And here we'll use app service plan.id. So bare minimum app service module is ready, which expects these three variables, parameters, and based on these parameters it creates a web app. Now we go to the main module and we create the app module, app tools, app service, and let's see. Here what we need to do is scope RG. So it should be deployed in RG scope, and now the names. So the name of the app here is should not be app src, it should be something called var name is equals to just ABDR oops let me see what is okay. ABDRS dot do we have let's see, where is this? We are just using the abbreviation from here, and container apps, but we don't have. just to make sure it does not exist for any other thing. And let's do this. Nope, just one. So as Azure App Service, that's what I meant to say. And here why it's not picking up, let me see. That's service. So it will pick this and it will tell AAS, and then it will get the value from resource token, which will be a unique value from based on these parameters. So we have a unique app name now, and the same will be provided to this parameter, and the same way we are going to provide that to this. Now we have this thing ready, and if we want, we can of course use let me go to the YAML, and we have made the changes. Yes, this is fine. Now we can either test this bicep using typical bicep, deployment. So but we have to run AZDCLI command, not the AZDCLI. So AZDCLI command typically used for bicep deployment, but here we want to deploy using AZDCLI. Now AZDCLI, what it does is it has, so previously when we ran or when we deployed, we use AZD up. Now AZD up is combination of different commands. So AZD up does everything for you. It deploys the infrastructure, it packages the application, and then it deploys the application as well. But it combines, different commands. And let me go through the documentation actually for that. Let me go here. And yes, so you can see there are a couple of commands here for authentication, for configuration, but we are more interested in the application lifecycle commands, which are, so we have already used AZD init. Now we have some commands which are more useful from deployment point of view. Of course, you can use all these different commands for doing different things, but here our primary objective is to deploy this application. And for deploying the application, the easiest command is AZD up, but AZD up does its work by using some other commands, and those are, let's go back to the top, and those commands are AZD package, AZD provision, and AZD, there is a deploy as well. Where is this? There is deploy, yes. And somewhere, let me check. I think not here, but somewhere it is mentioned what is the sequence of these commands. But it is obvious. First it will do the provision, then it will do the package, and then it will do the deploy. But I just want to have a look. There is init. I will come to this point. I know it is documented somewhere, but I do not recall the exact place. We will come to that. But yeah, run AZD command. Yes. Yes. So here, so AZD command handles the following task for you. it first do the AZD provision, which will deploy the infrastructure defined in your infra folder, and that's what you can use. Then you can use AZD package. Here it is not mentioned, but that one is used for AZD package, and then AZD deploy. So AZD deploy will combine the packaging and then deploy the code on the service. Now for that, what we will do is, let's do this, and actually, yeah, this is the one. So for that, we are already in this, and we have a Azure YAML file, we have infra, we have app source. Now let's do this AZD. Now we will not use up this time because we know up will do everything, but let's do one by one. So AZD provision. So AZD provision is going to deploy your sources in Azure, and for that it will ask the subscription. So we'll go with this subscription, sorry. And then it will ask the location. We will go with the default East US location, and then it will start the deployment, and it's deploying. And if we go to the subscription, here it is, and if we go to the deployment, and actually you will get the URL there as well, but you can see there is a deployment happening and it's working. It's doing the app service deployment. You can see resource group has been created. It is deploying an app, but it's throwing error, and consumption tier cannot be used for regular web apps. And what is the problem? Okay, consumption pricing tier cannot be used for regular web apps. So we have to fix something here in the module dynamic. Oops. I think this is not the consumption. Let's try again. I think this is fine. Yeah, this should be fine. Oh, see. Yeah, skew y1 dynamic. Yeah, it should be fine. Let's try again. If not, then we'll go through the API. So when we selected the subscription and the location, and if we go to the again to the environment variable, we can see that these environments variable has been added here, and the same can be fetched, and the same will be used in the parameter to get these parameter values. So we are not providing a parameter file here, parameter value here. It is automatically being fetched from the environment variable. Now let's go back and see what's happening, and yep, it looks like it's doing its work, but let's see, let's hope it works. Okay, so if we go here, hopefully this time, nope, I think something is not working well. And this app service, okay, let me see what's the problem. So we have Linux Y1 pricing plan, and it says consumption pricing tier cannot be used for regular. Okay, consumption pricing, regular apps. What is the consumption pricing? Okay, maybe I have to go to the API, and for that stuff, so what we will do is we'll just simply go to this API, there is something we are using very minimalistic thing over here. I think something is not fine for this app service plan. And if we go here, and actually we can easily get a sample here for function app. So here we have SKU and okay. So possibly this is the thing, I think. Yeah. And here kind app. I think this should be fine. And let's do this. AZD down. So we are going to delete everything what we have, just to make sure that it, you have app service, you are changing, so it might be possible that app service cannot be changed, so we are just deleting it. But we could run the provision again and test if it works, but better to delete. So AZD down deletes the whole infrastructure. Actually, it's just delete everything in that resource group, in the resource group for that environment. Let this be deleted. It's just one resource right now, that is app service plan, so it should be quick. Just finish it. Why it takes so much time? Yep, it has already deleted. It's deleting the resource group right now. Let's wait a bit more. Yep. Okay, so let's try again. AZD provision. Now it should provision again, but this time a different kind of service plan. And I hope this is fine with the Azure web app. Just hope. If not, then it will send me an error. It is good. Right now we are testing AZD CLI, but when you do a kind of a more complex infrastructure, then it is better to do a validation using AZDCLI of your bicep template, so that you are sure that bicep is fine. But yes, I mean, we can do this way as well, but it's just that it will first deploy the application and then you can you can be sure that it is done. But it is also good that you have just one command AZD down, which will delete everything for you. You don't really have to. Okay, so it looks like it's going fine. And so if we go to the resource group now, it has both the resources, app service plan, you have app service thing. And if we look at, let's finish the deployment. Yep, it has finished the deployment. And if you look at it's deployed, it has certain tags. It has AZD environment name, AZD service name. So AZD service name will be used for the deployment of the source code. Right now, if we go to the browse option, it will give you a typically standard web app starting page. But now we will deploy the application, and for that, what we will do is we can use AZD package, and then we can use the deploy, or we can do AZD deploy directly. So AZD deploy does the deployment of your source code to your service in the Azure that you have configured in azure.yaml. And that service is, let me again go back. So that service is this app service. So app service we have created, we have to create using infrastructure as code. Then we have to tag that service name with the tag in the resource, and we have already tagged it, and we can verify that again. So if we go there, we have the tags here. Now if everything is fine, so it should deploy the application there. So if you do this AZD deploy, so it's publishing the .NET application, and it has issue. So it says that getting target resource expected only one resource tagged with AZD service name, but found two. Yes, and why? Because this is the problem. Because when we deployed app service plan, we included this tag here. So better to remove this tag. And now so you know that this particular tag has a very special meaning. It has to be attached to the service which is supposed to host your application. So for that, making sure that tag is updated, we will do the provision again just to make sure that infrastructure is updated. Hope it should update the tag. Let's go to the service plan. Right now this tag is here as well, which should not be. So we could delete it from here as well, but it's better to delete using infrastructure as code. So it is just validating the state of the resources, and I hope it validates the tag as well. I have never validated tags, so I'm not sure if that will be happening. Sometime Azure give you a surprise, but I think it should update because it's just the infrastructure definition, and we have updated infrastructure definition, so it should reflect that changes. And I think it has done. So let's go ahead and refresh this page. And nope, it's still there. So let's see. Yeah, it's still updating. Yep, it has updated. So let's see. Oh. No, it has not deleted, and I know why. Because when we deploy resources, they are deployed in an incremental manner. So if something is there and if you remove it from infrastructure as code, you have to deploy it in a complete mode. This is the deployment model of Azure. So yeah, I mean, we will not get into that. We will just simply remove this guy from here. It is possible to remove this using infrastructure as code, but right now we are, what happened? Let me minimize this. Oops. Okay. remove this. Uh-oh, there is some issue with Azure. So let's do one thing. We can do this in a much easy way. So AZD down is the right way. So it will delete all the resources. There is some issue with Azure right now or something that is not letting me update the tag. So let me open the Azure here. Yeah, while it is updating, okay. Yes. Okay, it's deleting. Okay, it's deleting. Let this finish, then we will deploy again. Okay, we are almost there. It's just that we could not validate the simple thing, and that's the reason you can also split this thing in a different module as well. But right now, because we know that this app service plan and app service will go together, we have just declared them together in a single module. And this one does not have any tag, but you can have a tag over here, or you can have that combination instead of main. So for example, instead of main, this guy, you just have this and then declare this union in the app service itself for just using for app service. So there are different ways to use the tag as per your requirement, but the main thing is that the service which will host your application should have the tag that is combination of other things, but this one is what it will always look for. So this has to be attached with the app service in case of you are hosting it app service. If you are hosting container app, then the container app should have this tag, or any other supported host service like function app and other things. There are very few services being supported by Azure Developer CLI, but they are mostly the one that you need in the modern applications, microservices, Kubernetes that you will use, or you will use container app environment, or you will use Azure Web App. They are mostly capable of hosting any types of application. So let's see. Yep, it has deleted. Now let's do the AZD provision, or let's do this way. I don't want to. So AZD provision will provision the infrastructure again, and if we go here, we'll see that nothing is there, but it will soon create the resources. Yep, it's creating the resources. Resource group is already created. Now it is updating the resources. As soon as app service is created, we will see if the tag update is done, and it should be done because we have created a new service plan now. Let's wait for some time. Yeah, it's creating the app service now, so we can validate app service plan at least. So app service is being created, and app service plan should not have any tag, so it doesn't have any tag. You can have tag for environment only, just for tagging purpose. But again, you get the idea that this particular one having the tag of this is more important. Other tags are for tracking purpose, usual uses of tags. So okay, so it has been deployed, and we can see that. Now let's do the AZD deploy. So this will deploy your service, and it's compiling, uploading the deployment package, and actually let's go ahead while it is. Hopefully it is not done yet. It is still deploying. So yep, it has deployed already. So you can see that we have the same application that we have locally now on the Azure web app. So this is the, and I think in the name I have done something here. Yeah. So for example, here you don't need this extra dash because it already has a dash. But anyway, this is something you can change further. But this is how you can simply refactor the infrastructure folder. You can have your infrastructure as code bicep file as as you want. You can have shared resources like log analytics workspace, app insights, storage accounts, and other things from existing environment, and you can create your new resources here. No need to take the infrastructure as code as it is that you get from the init command, because when you do as AZD init, and if you select get the scan the folder and then get the template, it will scan, it will provision, or it will create the infrastructure as code as per its basic template. So it will give you the default services like Azure Container Apps. Maybe you don't want to use Azure Container Apps, you may want to use web app, or you may want to use function app, or you may want to use something other than that, maybe Kubernetes. So you can just remove everything. The basic temp or the basic structure that you need to maintain is that you need to make sure that you have the proper tagging of the service which is going to host your application, whether it is function app, web app, or container app, or Kubernetes service, or whatever. And the second thing is that you need to adjust your azure.yaml file. So for example, you need to make sure that your host is there, and if you are changing the service name, you need to make sure that tag that you are creating your bicep file is updated. So this is how you can create your own AZD CLI template for deploying your infrastructure definition of your choice for your application source code, which is your application. So this is how you can get started with Azure Developer CLI to create infrastructure without getting into the developing or getting into the portal. And also now you have the fully supported infrastructure as code with Azure Developer CLI that can be used by anyone in your team as well for for deploying resources in Azure. So this is what I wanted to show you. Now we'll do AZD down just to make sure we are not consuming resources, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll get back to something else next time. Maybe we'll come back with the Azure deployment environment and combining it with the Azure Developer CLI to deploy resources using Azure deployment environment. That can be one of the session. Thank you for watching.